And good morning, Macomb. It is Wednesday morning here. It is a nice, frisky morning. My name's Kyle Riley alongside Connor Fredlin and Max Hess. You're listening to The Hot Seat. Gentlemen, how are you doing this morning?
Oh, I'm doing great. We had a good weekend of football, and we were going to talk about that later. A lot of stuff went on this week in all sports. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I agree. Pretty good morning, pretty good weekend sports.
So like they said, there's a lot to talk about. We got some Cubs baseball to talk about. They still have not clinched the postseason. We'll get to that. We got some Chicago Bears, who surprised a lot of people this weekend. But first, let's start with some WIU football. Speaking of surprises, Connor, how did the football team do?
Well, they did really well. A lot of people thought that Coastal Carolina could possibly roll over the Western Illinois Leathernecks, but it was exactly the opposite. Western beating Coastal Carolina 52-10. They're now 3-0 on the season. They're starting 3-0 just like they did a season ago. And one of the big stories was Max Norris. Max Norris rushed for 80 yards. Steve McShane is back. He only rushed for 26 yards. He did have the one touchdown, but Max Norris continues to impress for the Leathernecks. In total, the team rushed for 225 yards with 3 touchdowns. Sean McGuire won some awards this week. Max?
Yeah, he won National Player of the Week in the FCS, and as he went 17 of 29 for 276 yards, 3 passing touchdowns. That one reception touchdown from LaShore, they did a double flip or a double handoff, and he threw the pass. It tipped off the Chanticleer defender, and McGuire caught it in the end zone for a touchdown.
One of the announcers on ESPN3 was saying that everything was going right for the Leathernecks, and that was really an understatement. Everything was going great for the Leathernecks, and it worked out perfectly.
So do you think there will be a quarterback battle for next week in between LaShore and McGuire?
Oh, yeah. No, Kyle. You try to make funny jokes here on the hot seat.
It's too early for jokes.
Way too early. Good morning, Kyle. Or does that not work? It's only for me?
It's only for you, Connor.
All right. But, yes, I think that Sean McGuire definitely showed that he has it in him. We've seen mostly the rushing game taking over, and, yes, they rushed for 225 yards. That still, the rushing game takes a lot of the spotlight here for the Leathernecks.
And that's
Sean
a big
McGuire doing a good job here.
And that's a big credit to the Western offensive line. They performed magnificently this year.
And speaking of which, Steve McShane made his return to the backfield. And how? Oh, you already said that, Connor?
Yeah.
I did not hear that. But anyways, Steve McShane did make his return to the field. So how important is that comeback in preparation for next week?
Well, if Max Norris keeps playing the way he is, Steve McShane, I mean, he did have the one touchdown, but he only ran for 26 yards. But if both guys can play to their fullest capability, it's going to be scary for defenders.
Do I see Jordan Howard and Tariq Cohen college version?
Well, I mean, if you go by that, wouldn't Steve McShane be the Jordan Howard and Max Norris be Tariq Cohen just because of the ages? But now they move on. They're going to play South Dakota, who's also 3-0. That's going to be Western Illinois' homecoming. It's Saturday at 3 p.m. South Dakota just beat Drake in a very close battle, 77-7.
A very close battle. I like those kind of football games where it's always close to the very finish. That's what I like about that game.
I mean, if you want to think about it, both teams had 7 in their score. It was definitely a close battle there, 77-7. As I said, they also beat Bowling Green 35-27. That one was a little more lopsided, but then they beat number 10 North Dakota 45-8.
That's pretty impressive. And at the time, North Dakota was number 10 in the FCS polls. So that is actually a pretty impressive win. And South Dakota also moved up to their spot at number 10 as of right now.
Well, now Western is looking into a mirror because same thing, exactly. Same great rushing attack, same passing game. And it's going to be a good one. And the key for Western is going to be to contain Chris Stievler. And he's a versatile running back, quarterback, excuse me.
Yeah, he's a quarterback, but he dominates the rushing game as well as the passing game.
He is a dual threat.
Yes, he's a dual threat quarterback. But that's going to be one thing that the Leathernecks have to do is contain Chris Streveler, because he is very dynamic and he will hurt your defense if he gets the opportunity to do so.
And guys, don't let South Dakota up early. Don't let them get up on you. They're not going to look back. That's the type of team South Dakota is.
Yeah, they're a type of team that will not slow down if they get the lead. They will keep on firing all cylinders until that final whistle in the fourth quarter blows.
And guys, think about it this way. If you guys had a prediction for this game coming up, I'm going to start with you, Kyle. What do you think is going to be the final outcome?
Now, last week we did say that it was going to be a very close game with Coastal Carolina. We were all wrong. But I feel like this week has to be a close week in order for the Leatherneck to do something, because you're going up against a very tough South Dakota team that will hurt you in all sorts of ways on offense and defense. Their defense is pretty tough. And the only way you can beat their defense is target their secondary, because rushing, even though Western has had a lot of success rushing the ball this season, this South Dakota defense is very tough. Their front seven is very phenomenal. So they have to target their secondary, and their secondary is not all that vulnerable.
Well, for me personally, regarding the game, it's really hard to go against. I'm a Western fan. I go to Western Illinois, but South Dakota, and by the way, who do you think is going to win the game?
My Leatherneck heart tells me to go with the Leathernecks, but my sports radio host heart also tells me to go with South Dakota. I might have to go with South Dakota on this one.
I wish I could say something different than you, but I think you got to go with South Dakota as well, because South Dakota, they beat North Dakota 45-8. Yes, North Dakota's not that same powerhouse that they were, with Carson Wentz and before. They're still a very good team.
Wrong, North Dakota.
I really messed that up. You're right. But they're either way,
I think
that's North Dakota State, isn't it?
Yes.
All
I
right.
think I'm going to go against you guys. I'm going to say Western Illinois is going to win 34-31. As reigning player of the week, Sean McGuire is going to go off for 300-plus passing yards against South Dakota.
So Max, you're going with the Leathernecks.
Yep.
Connor, you're going with South Dakota.
North Dakota.
North Dakota. All right. Good
We all
point.
make mistakes.
Yes, you all make mistakes like you just did. I'm going with South Dakota. But what we can promise is that this is going to be a very tough game for both teams, as they basically, like Connor said, it's like looking in a mirror for Western. It's the same exact passing, same exact rushing, and mainly same exact defense. So this is going to be a very tough game for the Leathernecks.
And you can catch that game. The Western Illinois Broadcasting Department will be presenting it on ESPN3. So you can catch
At
that
3
game.
p.m.
If you don't want to go to the game, but I'm sure it's going to be nice weather, not 100% sure. But I'm sure it's going to be nice weather. We're not quite to that, cold football games where nobody really wants to
We're
go.
not at football weather yet.
We're not there yet. We should be, but we're not quite there. But now moving on, Kyle, you want to tell us about men's soccer?
So the men's soccer team, they did have a game last week, and that was against Fort Wayne. They did beat Fort Wayne 3-1 in that match at Fort Wayne, and they moved to 3-5 of the season. And this is a very huge improvement to what they were at starting the beginning of the season, having only one win. That they only got the first win actually last week.
Well, really, if you want to look at it, they're 1-0 basically, because it's conference play. They're 1-0 in conference play. The games before that are basically a preseason. It's a good sign for men's soccer.
It's good because they're getting hot at the right time, getting into conference play.
And I mean, that's really all you could say about men's soccer right now. Their offense is starting to wake up a little bit. They have some very, very good weapons, as in Drew Whalen. They have him out there on the pitch. But really, there's nothing more to talk about with men's soccer. They just keep doing what they're doing, and they'll be okay.
Yeah, and their next game will be against Eastern Illinois here in Macomb this Saturday, just before the football game starts. So if you want to catch up to some Western sports, start with the soccer game and then move on to the football game.
Walk right over.
Just walk right over. It's a short walk.
All right, Max, what about women's soccer?
Women's soccer lost to Drake 2-1, and their record is now 1-8. To say the least, they have not performed well this far into the season.
It's a very struggle for the women's soccer team. It's a huge struggle right now. Only getting one win this season. Actually, that, like I said earlier, their one win came last week. So it is kind of a tough season for the women's soccer team, but it's still pretty early in conference play. Conference play just started. Did it start actually? Is Drake in our conference? No. So conference play has not really started yet. However, we can look for something to change, hopefully, for the women's soccer team in a way that they improve once conference play starts.
I mean, yeah, again, not much to say other than they've got to start playing better soccer, and if they want to have a chance to make the tournament this year. But now moving on to another sport, volleyball.
Would the voice of the women's volleyball team for ESPN3 like to say something about volleyball?
I mean, there's not much good to say right now. They're 5-11. They were 5-5 at one point on the year. Now have lost 6 in a row, and that all started from their first ESPN3 game against St. Louis. They have not won a match since then. The record stands at 5-11. Conference play has started in the Summit. They're 0-2 in conference play, and their next game is going to be Friday against Omaha. But there was an injury just recently during a game where Claire Grove and Abby Knoop ended up colliding, and it's on Instagram if you want to see the picture. If you go to WIU Volleyball, Abby Knoop's pretty beat up. She has bandages on her face. We're going to see how that affects the lineups, especially with Claire Grove, who's the libero. Shaylin Greenhaw played libero this weekend after the collision, but we'll see if that's going to change anything, because Abby Knoop doesn't play as much as Claire Grove, but she still is an extremely good server, and we'll see if her absence is going to affect the team. Claire Grove, we'll see if she's back, because Claire Grove is a leader out on the court. But other than that, volleyball needs to really turn it around. 0-2 in conference. The games have started to really matter now. And Friday is going to be against Omaha here at Western, so come on out and watch the game for that.
So there's going to be a busy weekend for Western sports. We have volleyball on Friday. We have men's soccer on Saturday. Football game also Saturday. And then women's soccer on Sunday. So it's going to be a very busy weekend for Western sports. And with that being said, we're going to take a short break. And when we come back, we have some MLB to talk about. Stay tuned. This is The Hot Seat. And welcome back to The Hot Seat. Connor Fredlin, Max Hess, and Carly joining with you this fine morning. And now we have some MLB to talk about.
Well, guys, the Cubs haven't clinched yet. They do have their magic number down by 1, but last night they had a chance to clinch the NL Central in St. Louis. They're going to have another chance tonight, but lost yesterday 8-7. And it wasn't really a heartbreaking loss, but it was definitely a game that we felt like we should have won just because of the situations that we had. Bases loaded, nobody out, only came out with a couple runs there. And just to start off before we go really into depth about this, any immediate concerns you have about the Cubs going into the postseason?
I have a concern about Jake Arrieta because per Mark Gonzalez, the Chicago Tribune, or the Chicago Cubs beat writer for the Tribune, said Arrieta said he has had to make adjustments in his delivery because his hamstring is not yet 100%.
Well, I would agree. That's definitely a concern. One thing is Arrieta will have one more start in the regular season against the Reds in the final series of the year. I believe that will be at home. We'll see how that all works out. My concern would just be that, well, Albert Almora Jr. yesterday, they said he's going to be okay, but he collided into the wall. It was pretty brutal to watch. I thought it was going to be a lot worse than it was. Joe Madden was quoted yesterday saying that he's been told he's going to be fine. A lot of injuries starting to build up. Wilson Contreras, his knee.
Yeah, he kept getting hit in the knee with every single foul ball.
Well, you know what? I felt bad for him. Have you ever seen a catcher get hit in the knee and then hop to the pitcher's mound and then just fall over?
You would think with all that padding he would be fine, but apparently that's not the case for Contreras.
I used to be a catcher, and I will say that no matter what, if you get hit in the knee, and again, I was never catching 95-mile-an-hour fastballs, but it's definitely painful. So I understand. Yadier Molina was another example this weekend of how dangerous it is to be a catcher. But then another injury would be Javier Baez, who didn't play yesterday. He should be okay as well.
He did pinch hit yesterday.
No, he didn't start yesterday. He did pinch hit yesterday to end the game and struck out. But Javier Baez is definitely a guy who we really need in that lineup. I still think that, we'll get to this in a second also, I still think that him and Russell should switch positions out there on the field. But we'll get to that in a second. But my main concern is just, I got to go with Max. Jake Arrieta. If he can't perform that delivery, and part of the reason he gets people out is because he's so good at hiding the ball in that delivery. If he has to adjust it, and if that takes away from velocity, which he's already lost, hopefully that's going to be okay. But he'll be on another pitch count later this week, 80 to 90 pitches.
Well, I saw a stat yesterday. Pre-injury, he was throwing 92.3 on his fastball, and post-injury, he was throwing 92.4.
Wow, so
So-
I guess he should be injured more often.
Yeah, no.
Okay, but either way, it's got to affect his fastball in some way. And I only say that because, I mean, you got to realize that with that delivery, or at least the deceptiveness of his deliveries probably affected the fastball. Maybe not, but definitely it didn't look right out there for Jake Arrieta. And Kyle, what are your concerns?
My main concern right now is still John Lester. Even though he pitched only allowed 1 earned run his previous starts, he only pitched 4 innings and got it to 80 pitch count. His pitch count got to 80. That's my main concern right now.
Again, I've had to do a lot of research over the last couple of days for John Lester, and Max pointed out to me from an article that he read or a podcast he heard that, first of all, Lester 2013, his numbers weren't as bad as they were this year. He had a 3.75 ERA. He did go, I believe, 15-8, but that was coming off of a career worst year in 2012, and his 2013 numbers, the record is never going to show really how good or bad you are because, you look at his record this year, he's 12-8 or 11-8. And it's, he's having one of his worst career years. But 2013, not a great year, but then in the postseason had an ERA of 1.65, including a phenomenal World Series appearance. And this is a guy that can just turn it on. He can turn it on in the postseason. He's the opposite of Clayton Kershaw. And it's definitely something that I'm not too concerned about. If he comes out, and I think last week I said that Jake Arrieta should pitch game 1 of the NLDS. I'm going with John Lester now. The more I think about it, the more I realize that he has the best postseason numbers out of anybody on the Cubs. Yes, you can go with Kyle Hendricks last year, but again, you can't ever go against a guy that has over 130 innings in the postseason and an ERA of 2.63. You can't go against a guy like that. And I would definitely start him game 1, and Max and I are together on this. Game 1 Lester, game 2 Arrieta, and game 3 Hendricks, game 4 Quintana. I think we all agree on this. Lackey out of the rotation.
Oh, yeah. He should be definitely out of the rotation because you cannot have that loose of a cannon pitching in your starting rotation during the playoffs.
Hey, guys, here's the question. Worse than Carlos Zambrano?
No, Carlos Zambrano is a different level of loose cannon.
All right, but obviously Zambrano is retired, and we shouldn't confuse our listeners out there. Guys, so game 1, Lester versus Scherzer, hopefully.
We have this conversation every single week since the show started, and our answers keep on changing every single week.
Because last week I said Arrieta. Last week Max said Hendricks for game 1. I do remember that. You said Lackey or something.
Yes, because I would definitely say Lackey would start in the NLDS. I think I said Arrieta.
I think that. Do you agree with Lester now? Oh wait, no, you don't. I know.
I still don't have my full confidence in Lester.
So do you go with Arrieta still?
I'm still going with Arrieta. Yes.
What about you, Max?
I'm going Lester just because of what I saw on the Barstool podcast with his phenomenal playoff record back in 2013 coming off a down year.
And his overall postseason record in his life. He had one postseason where he had an ERA of over 7, but that was because he pitched one game, and that was the AL wildcard game. So
see, I understand where you guys going with Lester starting, and it makes sense. Lester game 1, whoever's game 2, Hendricks game 3.
I like Lester on the road in game 1 because of his competitiveness, and I love Hendricks in game 3 because in the playoffs in general at home, he is phenomenal. He's always been good at Wrigley, so I like him in a game 3 scenario.
But here's the other thing. Do you actually put Quintana at the 4th spot? Because we never seen him pitch in the postseason.
you got to give him a chance.
Yeah, because...
But would that be better for a game 2 scenario rather than a game 4?
Well, it depends if we're up or down, but I think that you got to go with Quintana anyway. I think Quintana on no short rest is better than any of those 3 pitchers on short rest.
Especially with the way he's been pitching lately. He has, I think, 7 straight quality starts, which is why we traded him, because he's a consistent pitcher, and I think he has a potential to be very, very good, and I think he'll do well in the postseason.
Max, and I don't mean to burst your bubble here, but you talked about how great Hendricks is at home. He's actually been better on the road this year.
I was talking about previous in the past.
Previous, okay. Yeah, on the road this year, Hendricks, 3.07. At home, 3.2. Not much of a difference, but definitely he's been better away this season. And but you're right, in the past he's been better at home. So we'll see how that all works out.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions that need to be answered for the Cubs before the postseason starts. So, about last night, actually, I was talking to Max about this. I said this to you earlier, that I don't think the Cubs wanted to win last night because they had to put Mike Freeman as shortstop, and they put all their terrible, if I want to say terrible, relief pitchers in their. Well, just put them in the game.
Well, I don't think you could say they don't want to win. I just think that you can't.
It was basically
they didn't
like,
put their best foot forward.
Yeah.
They didn't put their foot on the gas last night.
Which they don't really need to yet. I mean, hopefully
They're still in cruise control.
Hopefully, what team was it that blew that huge lead? Was that the Nationals a couple years ago?
I can't remember.
I think they were up like 8 games with like a month to go, and the Mets came back and won the division and actually made it to the World Series that year. So I'm not. Hopefully, we're not a Nationals, but it is important to put your foot on the gas. But I'm not too worried about it. I mean, we'll see how it all works out. But now moving on to the Nationals, Bryce Harper's back. Kyle, you said that he went 0 for 2 yesterday.
Yep, 0 for 2, 1 strikeout, 1 walk.
And I think this injury, unfortunate for Bryce Harper, obviously, but as a Cubs fan, we saw how he did last year. He didn't really miss all that much time, but he was beat up during the season, and he had a bad year last year. So we'll see if this, extended time off is going to affect him. He's got to be rusty. And yes, Bryce Harper is an MVP candidate almost every year.
Not this year.
No, well, he should have been.
Should have been, but he got injured.
The injury is going to end that. I mean,
and actually, he's not had that good of a season. Actually, now I think about it,
I think he actually had a pretty good season. I think I saw last night he was batting over 300. Had 27 home runs and 87 RBIs.
All right, Kyle. Again, not to burst your bubble, but 324 on the year, 29 home runs, 87 RBIs.
Missed 41 games.
Yeah, but he still has 87 RBIs.
Missed 41 games.
Doesn't matter. You have 87 RBIs.
Yeah, you're proving that he did good. That he has a lot of RBIs for missing 45.
Imagine
games.
how many he would have if he didn't miss those games.
Imagine how terrible he'd do without missing those games.
Probably would do just as well. It's Bryce Harper. He's like the Mike Trout of the NL, just not quite as good.
He's a John Lackey of the Nationals. With a huge temper.
Yeah, but it doesn't affect him.
Yeah, it does.
Okay, we're debating here on the hot seat now, aren't we?
Yeah.
All right, but either way, Max and I agree. You're outnumbered 2-1. That Bryce Harper's had a phenomenal year. Guys, Bryce Harper, one of the best in our game right now, and he's going to be a difference maker in the playoffs either way. There's no doubt about that. But the guy that I'm most scared about, and I think this is just a flashback to 2015, Daniel Murphy. I'm terrified of that man.
Yeah, I think that's pretty safe assumption considering what he did in 2015.
I totally forgot he was on the Nationals. That actually made me worry a little more now. I'm sweating a little bit more now that thinking about the Cubs playing the Nationals in NLDS in 5 games.
I'm sorry, Kyle.
But I still like the Cubs rotation in 5-game series over the Nationals. Because in Game 3, who are the Nationals going to throw that is
Gio Gonzalez.
Yeah, Gio Gonzalez.
And Gio Gonzalez almost threw a no-hitter this year. I'm going to look at his stats right now.
That's not really anything to say because a lot of mediocre pitchers pitch no-hitters.
Oh, okay. Well, Gio Gonzalez, 2.75 ERA this year, 15-8, 196 and 2/3 innings pitched, and that's not bad. I think the Cubs can pull off this series, but I think that their rotation is better if not.
But first, the Cubs have to make it to the playoffs.
Can we be safe here? And okay, we're not going to say anything to jinx it, so let's all knock on wood right now. But I think we're pretty safe, and hopefully we can win tonight, and then we can come back next week and say that our knocking on wood worked. But we got to win one game in the final week. We can do it.
But we can also say our knocking on wood did not work because baseball is a very tricky sport where anything can happen.
Yeah, that's the problem with baseball, but it also makes it more fun. So going on now from the Nationals, you got
to the team that's actually trailing the Cubs right now in the NL Central.
They have a better chance at the wild card. I think we can all agree on this. They're a game and a half back. The Brewers are from the Colorado Rockies, unless the Colorado Rockies lost last night.
Let me double check.
I can check. You got it. I got it up here. Last night the Rockies were. They beat Miami, so it's still a game and a half. They beat Miami 6-0.
And that's bad news for the Brewers and the Cardinals as their magic number slowly goes down.
Well, I think that the Cardinals are 2.5 back. The Brewers are 2 back, actually.
Nope. Milwaukee is 1.5 back.
They are?
Cardinals are 2.5 back.
Well, we'll see how that all ends up, and I mean, it's going to be an interesting finish in that wild card. We thought the American League wild card would be closer than it is, but Kyle's Angels have really fallen apart.
It was not just my Angels that fell apart. The Rangers, they had like a little bit of life showing with them, but then they just collapsed. And now the Twins have probably definitely locked up the last wildcard spot.
And guys, I didn't even write this down in our notes, and I don't know why I didn't, but Aaron Judge, jaw-dropping. He's proved that after this slump, he's really been able to turn it around again. 50 home runs, 4 home runs in 2 games to get to that number.
And just a quick ad about the Twins. They can clinch the final wildcard spot tonight with a win or an Angels loss.
All right, so basically you're saying the Angels are done.
Yep.
And the wild card game is basically over. The fight for it, except the Yankees are still alive in the AL East by about 3 games, I believe.
Yes, so we know that the Twins will be traveling to the East Coast, but we don't know where they'll be once wildcard time hits.
All right, so we'll see how that all works out. But let's go back to Aaron Judge for a second. 50 home runs, breaking Mark McGwire's rookie record. I was listening to MLB Network yesterday, and Mark DeRosa was talking, one of our favorite players of all time, Mark DeRosa, former Cub. He said that, I actually agree with this. I think you've got to give the AL MVP to Judge. 50 home runs. He's bringing that batting average back up, and he made a good point. I was thinking Altuve beforehand, because Altuve's he's always robbed of the MVP every year, just because he's always bats over 330, has a great year. But you take Altuve off that Astros team, the Astros are still going to win that division. You take Judge off of the Yankees aren't going to get that wild card spot. They're not. Judge is more important to that team than Altuve is to the Astros.
My AL MVP does not strike out over 200 times.
I mean, I get that, but 50 home runs?
And you say that Altuve does not make a difference for the Astros. He is the centerpiece for that Astros team.
I disagree. I think Carlos Correa is just as important. George Springer's up there. I think that Judge is more important.
More assets than centerpieces.
Yeah, but I think Judge is more important to the Yankees than Jose Altuve is to the Astros. And Mark DeRosa said it really well. If you found it on YouTube, you can look at that. But he really convinced me.
Did he convince you because he's your favorite player and you listen to everything he says?
No. He's not the only one that says that. I mean, it was a lot of people on MLB Network. I mean, again, 50 home runs, over 100 RBIs. He's batting just around where Stanton is batting, and I think Stanton should win the NL MVP this year. I don't think that you can go against a guy like Judge, especially with the type of year he's having. Yes, they have the award, Rookie of the Year. They have that. But if you're having a year like Judge is having, you can't go against him. I don't think you can.
What's his batting average, Aaron Judge's? What's his batting average?
Aaron Judge, it's been going up again. I will get that for you in just a second. Aaron Judge's batting average on the year, and I have to find players, which is really annoying sometimes. Okay, here you go. Aaron Judge.
283.
283.
And what is Jose Altuve's batting average?
340 or 350 something, and I get that, but look at the RBIs.
Look at the strikeouts. That's my main concern with Judge because he has 200 strikeouts of the season, and my AL MVP does not strike out 200 times.
But you got to think about it. There are people that strike out 200 times. You can take Adam Dunn, for instance. He batted like 230. Judge is batting over 280. Yes, the strikeouts come, and that comes with being a rookie. Look at Chris Bryant, his rookie year.
Yeah.
But the season that he is having, Aaron Judge, batting over 280, yes, the 200 strikeouts stink, but over 50 home runs. As long as you're batting over 280 with over 50 home runs, you can't go against the guy.
You can go against the guy.
Well,
you go with Jose Altuve.
Unfortunately, I really like Altuve, but I think you do have to give it to Judge.
You just can't give it to a guy who struck out 200 times.
Yes, you can. You definitely can.
Because basically what that's saying is his only outs were strikeouts.
And when he makes contact, that ball is going to go a long way or into a corner or a gap or right at a fielder but on the ground. But you cannot go against Aaron Judge. And we'll see, Kyle, if Jose Altuve wins the MVP this year, I will give you a big hug.
I don't want your hugs.
Well, you're going to get it anyway.
I do not want your hugs at all. So now that wraps up baseball talk, and now we get to some quick news before we head into our second break. And some national news. President Trump will visit Puerto Rico to survey the damage left by Hurricane Maria last week. I believe he was supposed to, sometime this week, that he'll visit Puerto Rico. And in other national news, the White House publicly stated that they are not at war with North Korea after North Korea's foreign minister accused the U.S. of declaring war. and into some entertainment news and lighter news for those previous national news. And for those of you that keep up with the Kardashians, who like to keep up with them,
I don't want to keep up with them, so can I leave the room for this?
You can leave the room for this.
All right, I'll see you guys later.
Khloe Kardashian and boyfriend Tristan Thompson are expecting a baby just days after sister Kylie Jenner announced her pregnancy. And then there's other tech news, Twitter. This is some... Hey, Connie, you might want to come back for this.
It's funny how some of the Kardashians get pregnant right before the season premiere.
I'm back. I'm back, guys.
For all you guys that are into Twitter, there is a chance that 280 characters is coming.
280? What is it, 260 or 270?
It's only at 140 right now.
Oh, just 140?
Yeah.
280? That's like a whole another 40 words.
Wow, longer posts.
No more
No more screenshot tweets.
All right, Connie, you can leave again.
All right, I'll see you guys.
All right, and into some weather for today. We can expect partly cloudy skies with the high of 72. Then tonight, partly cloudy skies with the low of 44. Tomorrow, we'll see sunny skies with the high of 74. And tomorrow night, we get mostly clear skies with the low of 49. Then to start off your homecoming weekend on Friday, we'll see mostly more sunny skies with the high reaching 75. Then to drop down to 44 Friday night. And the time right now is 7:31, and we're going to take another break. And when we come back, we're actually going to talk about basketball. Max, I know you're ready for that. And then we got some Chicago Bears talk and NFL talk. So stay tuned. This is the Hot Seat. And welcome back to the Hot Seat on this beautiful Wednesday morning. Time right now is 7:32. And for the first time since the school semester started, it's time to talk about some NBA because there's been some serious stuff happening.
All right. In this past week alone, there's been a lot going on. To start out with, the biggest thing is that Carmelo Anthony has been traded to the Oklahoma City Thunder for Enes Kanter, Doug McDermott, and the Chicago Bulls 2018 second-round pick. What do you guys think of this trade?
I think that finally Carmelo Anthony gets out of New York. That's definitely a very...
And he's not a contender. I want to say contender. He's in
I
the
don't
West.
think anybody in the contenders in the West is a contender except for the Warriors, so I'm going to disagree with you there.
But he's in a playoff team now.
Yes, he's on a playoff team for the first time in forever. And, I mean, I think that the Thunder won this trade easily because I was reading something about how Enes Kanter, Doug McDermott, and the Chicago Bulls' second-round pick, Melo's worth a lot more than that.
Oh, yeah.
But, again, he's only like the 64th best player in the league, so, you know.
And this proves that last year the Chicago Bulls on Thunder trade between Taj Gibson, Doug McDermott, Cameron Payne, all those other guys is pretty worthless now. Because basically everything in that trade, just none of those teams have those assets anymore.
It was worthless before this trade happened.
And now it's even more worthless after the trade happened.
All right, another news. Zach LaVine announced at the Chicago Bulls meeting today that he will not be back until late November, early December.
No.
That's actually not that bad when you think about when he tore his ACL.
Yeah, I mean, we thought he'd be back for the beginning of the year, but we don't want Rose 2.0, so.
Plus, it helps speed up the tanking process for the Bulls.
Yes.
They're not tanking, guys. I'm telling you. I mean, yeah, Dwayne Wade's gone, and we'll get to that in a second, but it's Garpax. They'll find a way not to tank.
Tank for Porter.
Tank for Porter, as in Max's words. And now you said about Dwayne Wade?
Dwayne Wade has agreed, not yet signed, a 1-year, $2.3 million deal with the Cavs.
Yes, he has reached a buyout with the Bulls, and he is about to
$39 million buyout.
Yeah, $39 million buyout,
for one season.
Which is ridiculous.
This is not the Dwayne Wade of 2006 or 2010-11. This is the Dwayne Wade of, the Dwayne Wade with a cane.
This is prehistoric Dwayne Wade.
Yes, prehistoric Dwayne Wade. That's a great way of putting it. And, I mean... All right, he's gone. We're tanking, hopefully.
But does this really help the Cavs, though, in any way?
I think it helps in veteran presence.
And chemistry.
I mean, you know how LeBron and Dwayne Wade are. And, yes, right now you guys think J.R. Smith is going to start over Wade? Or do you think Wade's coming off the bench? I don't think LeBron's going to allow Wade to come off the bench. Yeah, I don't think Wade's going to allow Wade to come off the bench.
I don't think LeBron or Wade. There's like two of those high egos. That's not going to allow that. Yeah, those alpha dogs are not going to allow that such thing to happen.
And I think they're better together on the court anyway.
I do, too.
I mean, this is turning into Miami, and Miami was actually able to win more than one championship.
But does this make Cleveland more of a contender now, or do the Celtics remain on top?
It depends on how the Celtics gel as a team. That with Kyrie Irving, Gordon Hayward, we'll see how that all works out. But I think that the Cavs are still the favorite in the East. It's just so hard to go against LeBron.
They got such a deep bench now that is really hard to go against them.
I still think the Celtics will find a way to win the East.
I hope the Celtics.
Regular season or
in the regular season.
I
Yes.
mean, you can.
Oh yeah.
I'm saying or in the playoffs.
I think I say in the preseason for some reason, but I do believe that the Celtics can get over the Cavs and move on to the NBA Finals. When was the last time LeBron did not make the Finals? Was it 2009?
8 years ago.
8 years ago.
That was the last time.
2009.
The Boston Celtics. That was
It's
the last.
so annoying. I'm not gonna lie. It is so annoying, and I'm gonna watch the NBA this year.
But it's not that predictable.
No, it's
Sarcasm.
Oh, okay. It's just the NBA. This is the problem with all the contracts and these super teams starting, because this is gonna happen. I mean, the odds are, I say there's a 95% chance that it's gonna be Warriors Cavs again in the finals, part 4. And it's so irritating as a fan.
It's like the Hangover trilogy.
Look, it's not just because I'm a Bulls fan and the Bulls just can't get over the, I guess it was the Heat at one point and now the Cavs or the Celtics, really.
And that team has reunited. That was supposed to be the 2011 Chicago Bulls team with LeBron, D.
What
Wade,
if Chris
and Rose.
Bosh came back?
It's still a
Is he
possibility.
officially retired yet?
I think he might be retired, but
But he can come out of retirement.
yeah,
And
it's gonna be a risk.
How happy would LeBron be if that happened?
I don't think LeBron would actually let that happen for health reasons, because him and Bosh are great friends, obviously. And I don't think LeBron wants Bosh to potentially get harmed because of his blood clot issues.
Well, we'll see. I doubt it's going to happen. But
I mean, he has nothing to prove at this point in his career. But anyways, in other Cavs news, Isaiah Thomas is not expected to be back around Christmas time.
And that was actually kind of a shock to me, but at the same time it wasn't, because the Cavs were worried about this when they traded Isaiah for Kyrie.
I think that I think this just shows. I think the Celtics knew this was going to happen. And I'm surprised the Cavs are actually willing to go through with this.
But that gives time for Derrick Rose to take the reins of the point guard position.
Well, that's
for
the thing.
Cavs.
If he performs, is he going to be the starter over Isaiah Thomas?
No, Isaiah's going to have that starting position.
What if Rose is averaging 20 points a game and he's having... Or could they possibly somehow shuffle the rotation and have Rose at the 2?
Now with Dwayne Wade in the roster.
Well, I mean, Wade could be injured by then.
You're not wrong.
Fair enough.
So that'll conclude our NBA talk for the first time since the school year started, and we'll probably get back to that in 3 weeks, because I don't think anything else will happen in the NBA. But now moving on to the Chicago Bears, who kind of surprised everyone.
I was there, you were there, we were there.
Yes, we were all there at Soldier Field this past Sunday, and it was a decent game, to say the least. It was an okay game if you're there in person, and a lot of things happened that
Was that
game.
sarcasm?
Yes, it was sarcasm, Connor.
Okay.
There's a lot. Everything that could go right and could go wrong happened during the game, and we're just gonna start out with this, that Cooper play.
I was promised the reins on this one, Max. I know you're about to talk. It was just I wanted to go off once on this show, and you're an NFL football player, so let's just explain. Kick was blocked, and you probably saw the highlight. Cooper gets the ball right into his hands, falls into his hands at the end of the half. Oh, he's sprinting, easy touchdown. All the announcers were like, he will go for a touchdown, but then he stops to celebrate. And yes, okay, yeah, a player stops to celebrate in the end zone, right? No, at the 1 yard line. And then, boom, arm hit, fumble, out of the back of the end zone. The Bears caught a break in the fact that they reviewed it, said that it was batting illegally out of bounds by the Steelers, and they were able to kick a field goal. But Marcus Cooper Sr., come on, man. Monday Night Football reference there, Monday Night Countdown, but you've got to be better than that. You're in the NFL, and that is unacceptable.
And for those of you who did not watch the game Sunday, we're not just saying he stopped at the 1 yard line. He stopped at the 1 yard line. He did not slow down. He stopped.
When all he had to do was just stick the ball across the goal line.
And he had the nerve afterwards to look at the referee and say that was a touchdown. No, you were at the 1 yard line. You were being dumb. And you really, as a fan in that crowd, we were kind of in the Steelers section because we got our tickets from the ownership of the Steelers. But it was bad.
Everyone in that stadium was so happy when that kick got blocked, and they continued to scream and shout until the 1 yard line, and then everyone just erupted in just pure booze and anger and everything that could go wrong for Bears fans.
It was Deshaun Watson, but worse. Because Watson was a rookie. He had an excuse.
You mean Deshaun Jackson?
Deshaun Watson, too. He'll do it one day. Yeah, you're right. Deshaun Jackson.
Yeah, it was definitely. It's an inexcusable play. If you're in the NFL, you cannot be making boneheaded plays like that.
And now moving on, how about Cohen and Howard? They performed amazing.
Yeah, well, because
Not for my fantasy team, but just overall for the Bears.
Cohen did well for my fantasy team.
Yeah, Jordan Howard did well for my bench.
But let's talk about them a little bit. 220 combined rushing yards. All right, Max Norris and Steve McShane. You're not wrong. There's some comparison there, except they're in the NFL, Cohen and Howard. But, okay, guys, let's just talk about this a little bit. Howard, what was that, 140 rushing yards for Howard, and then
2 touchdowns.
76 yards for Tariq Cohen, including a play that
should have ended the game.
Well, I was so angry because I called it.
You did call it. I'll give you that.
I was next to you. I said, I was being totally sarcastic, too. I was like, Tariq Cohen, 70-yard touchdown run right here, win the game in overtime. But he stepped out of bounds, apparently. But it was too close to overturn the call. Luckily, Jordan Howard ran it in for the touchdown in overtime. And, guys, I was watching a video. First of all, amazing block by the tight end, Adam Shaheen. I just wanted to make sure I said that right because we haven't talked about him much because he did have his first reception touchdown this week. But I was just making sure I didn't say Shireen. But Adam Shaheen with a great block on that final run in overtime to help Jordan Howard get into the end zone. So credit to the rookie for having a great game overall.
Credit to the whole Bears offensive line that game, shutting down the Steelers' front seven, and that without that rushing attack, the Bears.
And that's not an easy defense to go against. Mm-hmm. They're a pretty tough defense. They still have James Harrison, who's still pretty good. T.J. Watt, I'm pretty sure he was out there in that game, so they did have that. But either way, they're still a pretty good defense.
They're having a rough start to the year, and I only say they're 2-1, but they're having a rough start to the year. The Steelers are, but they're the Steelers. They should be fine.
Or kind of the opposite of the Bears. The Bears had a chance to beat the Falcons, and that would have given them 2 elite wins.
They'd be
and the Steelers barely beat the Browns and lost to the Bears. So it's kind of a flip, if you could say, in seasons for them.
All right, and then one other thing we got to talk about, Mike Glennon, the GOAT.
He had a good game. He had a pretty good game.
The human giraffe,
as I like to call it.
Can we disagree with that?
I don't know why you're so angry. He had 84. Actually, no, it was 101 passing yards, but the team totaled 84 passing yards, which I don't get. But anyways, I don't get that because a lot of websites said that the team passing yards was 84, but Glennon threw 101 yards, which I don't get.
We'll say he threw for 90 yards.
Let's say 84, just put the worst case scenario.
God, he was so good. That interception he threw in the red zone. Oh my gosh, it was just beautiful to watch.
And 84 passing yards, we're going to say. 1 touchdown and then 1 interception.
It wasn't the red zone. Mm-mm. I was wrong about that. It set up the Steelers in the red zone. So I guess the Steelers' red zone, he threw a pick. But, oh my gosh, it was brutal to watch. Dump passes right over the top.
A lot of checkdowns. A lot of checkdown routes.
It's brutal to watch. It's like Glennon gets out there. All right, guys. Hey, Cohen, Howard, take the ball. And if I'm going to throw it, it's going to go to you guys anyway. So live with it. Yes, you don't have a great receiving core, but you got to use Marcus Whedon a little bit more. He's back. You got to use. Look,
Bellamy.
Bellamy, yes, he has a history of dropping balls, but when he catches it, he catches it. He's a wide receiver in the NFL. You got Deontay Thompson, who's not very proven, but you've got some guys on there that, yes, they're young, they're inexperienced, but trust them. And now the question, is it Trubisky time yet? I know all three of us say yes, but
John Fox think it's Trubisky time. And my answer is no. He's too self-centered to know that it is time for Trubisky because you cannot have the quote-unquote 84 passing yards according to NFL.com and other websites. That you cannot have that.
Look, John Fox said that it's, and a quote, it's safe to assume, or that would be a safe presumption to assume that Glennon is starting on Thursday against the Packers, but nothing's official yet, and he'll announce that today.
and it will probably be Mike Glennon starting against the Packers.
Unfortunately.
What if it's the Sanchez?
Then I think Bears fans would boycott the game.
Nobody.
They would riot.
You know what? I'd actually be probably happier with Sanchez than Glennon. But yes,
At this point, I would actually agree
Sanchez
with
has
that.
actually made the playoffs and been a somewhat credible starter in his career. So, but either way, it is Trubisky time for us three.
But not for John Fox.
No.
And that is the main issue with John Fox. And that might cost him his job, is if he does not start Trubisky sooner than later.
All right, guys, what's your keys to winning this game? I'm going to start off, I'll say it, and then we'll go to Kyle and Max. My keys to winning this game, pound the ball inside, and with running, Howard and Cohen. I mean, the Packers' D-line is not what it used to be. It's definitely not what it used to be. And I think that you've got to throw the ball down the field if you're going to win. The secondary against the Steelers for the Bears looked great, Marcus Cooper included, except for that one, but that's not part of the passing game. But the defense looked great against the Steelers. They were able to, and I said this to Max during the game, break but don't bend.
Bend, don't break.
No, you can break, though. You're right. Bend, don't break. Good morning, Connor.
Good morning, Connor.
Or I might have said it to you, actually, during the game.
I don't know who you said it to.
All right, but either way, the Bears' defense looked really good on Sunday, and my keys to the game are run the ball, find a way to throw it more than 2 yards, and actually, you know what? Another key, start Trubisky.
All right, with all the bias out of the way, the keys to beating the Packers is our secondary to perform phenomenally, because you're going against an A-list quarterback in Aaron Rodgers, Mr. Fourth Quarter himself, who came back against the Bengals down 24-3. You need that secondary to step up big time. Not the front seven, that secondary. Because if that secondary has like a lapse in coverage, they're going to regret it, and that's going to be easy points for the Packers.
Chris Conte?
No. I think the key to the game is to get the passing game going, because they've just been awful. The passing game's been awful.
Mike Glennon's been awful. Not them, Mike Glennon himself.
Yep. And if he can't get it going, I think second half, big rivalry game, I think Trubisky can get thrown into the fire.
It won't. He won't. Let's be real here. He won't.
Unfortunately.
All right, so what are your predictions for tomorrow night?
Tomorrow night, my prediction, and I mean this. Yes, it's partially biased, but if the Bears can play like they did against the Steelers and somehow get Glennon going, or whoever going, I say the Bears can win this one 24-21.
I usually don't have a pessimistic view, but I think the Bears lose this one 28-17.
It is Thursday night, and usually on Thursday nights, the underdog usually wins. So I might go with the Bears in this one in a huge shot, because I usually will take the Packers in this matchup. But the Bears will win this one 20-13.
One thing that I should throw in there, it is Lambeau Field, but I still feel like the Bears have a chance to win this one 24-21. We don't have McClellan in there anymore to help us out with Rodgers, but
And I'm pretty sure Packer fans are happy about that. And now moving on one final note before we move on to the rest of the NFL. Quentin Demps broke his arm Sunday, and he is out at least a month. He might go on IR, but nothing is confirmed yet. And now moving to the NFL, there were some pretty big upsets last week. You got the Bills beating the Broncos, the Colts beating the Cleveland Browns. I'm saying that because my lock got
it technically
ruined.
is an upset because the
technically is
Browns
an
were the
upset.
favorite.
The Jets beat your Dolphins, the Jay Cutler Dolphins. The
Gosh.
Redskins, this is a huge shock. The Redskins beat the Raiders, and Jacksonville beat Baltimore. So of all those upsets, which one was the biggest?
I think you got to go with. I'm gonna toss up here between the Bills and the Jets.
Don't let your Jay Cutler love
No,
get
it's
involved.
because Miami is much better than the Jets. I don't think anybody can, or they should be. But I'm gonna go with the Bills beating Denver. But Tyrod Taylor is a good player. He has talent.
Yeah, I
Now-
agree. I do agree Tyrod Taylor does have talent, and he does have potential to get even better. What happened to the Broncos? Their offense against the Cowboys was firing on all cylinders, and
Their
just
defense was doing phenomenally that game.
but their offense just couldn't get it going against. I don't think the Bills' defense is that great. I just think that Trevor Siemian couldn't get it going.
Now, I would expect you two to say that the Redskins being Oakland was a huge upset.
No.
But I think that was the huge upset of the week because, first of all, that was on Sunday night. And second of all, if you were to tell me that the Redskins are going to beat the Raiders this Sunday, I would have told you. I would have laughed in front of your face, but that was the case.
Here's a question.
Kirk Cousins, and they did not have Ryan Kelly, which is not really a huge factor, but Kirk Cousins led that Redskins team to pound on the Raiders.
And I know we're running out of time here, but just one question for both of you guys. I think Kirk Cousins is up there in quarterbacks. I think he's a pretty darn good quarterback, and I mean, but you're right, it's an upset. But I still think that the Bills losing to the Broncos.
You mean Broncos losing the Bills?
Oh my gosh! Good morning, Connor. The Bills beating the Broncos is a bigger upset.
And now moving on to some undefeated teams. The Chiefs and the Falcons remain undefeated. The Falcons, they almost blew it against the Lions. But which team has a better chance of going 4-0? Now keep in mind, Kansas City is taking on Washington again in prime time. And then Atlanta is taking on Buffalo, who just beat the Broncos.
I think Atlanta has a better chance. As we saw last week, the Redskins are good. Kirk Cousins is good. So I think the Washington Redskins could beat the Chiefs. But I still think Kansas City comes out on top. But I still like my chances of Atlanta going out undefeated if I had to pick between the two.
I've got to agree with Max.
Now, Atlanta, they've been stuck in some pretty close games against Chicago, Green Bay, and last week against the Lions. But I think Kansas City might actually have the better chance against Washington because Washington has a huge ego right now after being the Raiders. And
That's not always a bad thing.
That's not always a bad thing, but at the same time, it could be a bad thing to have overlooked the Chiefs. And I think the Chiefs might take advantage of that and beat the Redskins. And now moving on to NFL predictions. Now, Max, I'm going to start out with you. Who is your lock and who's the upset of the week?
My lock is the Falcons versus Buffalo. I think Matt Ryan's going to go off and have a very good game against the Bills. And my upset is Giants versus Tampa Bay. The Giants have to win a game if they want to keep their playoff hopes alive, and I think Eli Manning comes out and performs Super Bowl. I think Super Bowl Eli's going to come out and have a good game.
He better if they want any chance of getting back into it. My personal lock is going to be the Steelers over the Ravens. Because oh my gosh, the Ravens versus the Jaguars in London. I think that they're just going to be down and out for the rest of the year. And my upset is going to be the Rams over the Cowboys.
Now, my pretty safe lock for this week is Arizona versus the 49ers because, come on, they're playing the 49ers. And then my upset, Connor, you're going to love this one. I got the Dolphins being the Saints.
I don't know if that's much of an upset.
Well, to you, it's not, but according to Las Vegas, it is an upset.
Is it in London? Because it says on NFL app, it says 8:30 a.m.
Then it's in London. That's the second straight London game. So the Dolphins will upset the Saints in jolly old London this weekend. And now going to your fantasy start, sleeper, sit. If you want to listen to me, if you can ignore me, that's fine. But Max, who do you got for your fantasy pick?
For my starters, I have Carson Wentz going versus the Chargers because Chargers defense has not been good this year. I'm going to sit Ty Montgomery versus the Bears because the Bears front seven has been very good. My sleeper is Case Keenum. He performed very well last week for the Vikings. I think he could potentially have another big week versus the Lions.
All right, well, my starter, I was going to say Tariq Cohen, but that's more of my Bears bias right there. But looking at this schedule, I think you've got to go with Tom Brady over Carolina. Carolina got absolutely destroyed by Drew Brees this past week. Well, okay. And then my sleeper, Bortles from the Jaguars. Bortles is going up against the Jets, and Cutler couldn't do what Bortles is going to do this week. So I'm going to go with Bortles. And my sit, I think you've got to go with Case Keenum. Because I know a lot of people are going to start starting him, but he's not that good. Case Keenum.
Plus, he's not really a starter yet. Sam Bradford might be healthy, but we don't know about that.
I know that a lot of people probably picked him up on waivers this week. So I'm going to go with sit Case Keenum against Detroit. And Detroit, I think, is going to blow out the Vikings.
And now my starters, if you want to ever listen to me, because I'm always wrong in these fantasy picks.
It's pretty funny, actually.
It's actually kind of funny. The starts, this might be a safe one. Start Tom Brady versus Carolina, and I say that he's probably going to have like 2 points for your fantasy team. Sit Ty Montgomery, who might go off against the Chicago Bears because I have him sitting this week. And your sleeper, Deshaun Watson versus Tennessee. He's actually performed pretty well last week, and look for him to continue against the Tennessee Titans. And some notable news before we sign off for this Wednesday morning. This is some serious news, actually. The FBI has charged 4 NCAA men's basketball assistant coaches from Arizona, Auburn, USC, and Oklahoma State for taking cash bribes. There's also an Adidas marketing guy charged as well.
Well, I mean, you got to really think about it this way. College basketball always has something going on. All college sports.
It's always something with those big college teams that usually wind up getting in trouble some point in time. With that being said, we're going to sign off on this Wednesday morning. For Connor Fredlin, Max says, I've been Kyle Riley. Thank you for listening to Hot Seat. Follow us on Twitter at WIU Hot Seat, and we'll be back next week bright early. So thank you guys for listening. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday, and a happy homecoming week, and have a safe homecoming weekend.